All right, well, welcome everyone to another exciting learning lab. I am super excited for this particular learning lab. We're going to be talking a lot about Twitter. We're going to be talking about text mining. We're going to be talking about a couple of really cool software packages. One is Rtweet. The other one is Tidytext. So if you're into text analysis, if you're into social media, if you're into brand, awareness and brand and analyzing your brand from a quantitative perspective, this is going to be exciting for you. And if you've never worked with any of this stuff, that's totally fine too, because this is going to be a great one for people who are just working with R for the first time. From my perspective, the Tidytext package, they've really done a lot of good work with it to be able to make it super user-friendly for doing text analysis. So we'll go through a lot of the concepts in here. With that said, let's get started. If you're new to Learning Labs, this is the structure. I'm going to do about 15 to 20 minutes of presentation, just cover the high-level 80-20 immediate things that you need to know in order to get into the demo. We're going to spend the bulk of the time on a demo, and we've got a heck of a demo for you. We've got a Shiny app, we've got a bunch of bonuses that we're going to be giving out, and we have just a full, not only Twitter API script, but also a second script on sentiment analysis with Tidytext. So it's going to be really cool. And then at the end, it says pro tips, but actually we're going to switch it up a little bit today. We're going to be talking about career acceleration and how to use Shiny to be able to leverage that, because that's going to be one of the key themes that we see in this analysis today, is how Shiny automates all the stuff that we're talking about, like the analytics, the sentiment analysis, the visualizations, and does it all under the hood, packages it up into an app that your organization can actually use. So we'll be talking about that at the end. The Shiny API series. So this is the 5th part. And if you've missed any of these, I have good news. They're all available in Learning Labs Pro. So over the past 5 weeks or past 5 Learning Labs, we've gone over a real estate example of using Shiny API, the Zillow API with Shiny to create a machine learning powered web app. That was in Lab 28. Lab 29, we switched gears and we did an oil and gas app, and we used the Quandl API to pull in energy data. In Lab 30, we did a finance app, and we used my TidyQuant package for collecting financial information. And we also showed you some of the new Excel functionality, and we built a really cool pivot table app. In Lab 31, which was 2 weeks ago, we did a Shiny marketing app where we used the Google Analytics data and the API to connect up to Google Analytics. And we did some forecasting for web traffic visits to business science's actual data on our web pages. So we analyzed our most popular web pages, and we forecasted what we should be seeing in terms of web traffic in the future. And then that leads us up to the final, the last one in the Shiny API series, and we're now switching gears, and we're talking about text data, and we're talking about Twitter, the Twitter API. So we're going to show you how to connect up to that with some really cool R packages. If you are just finding out about Learning Labs Pro, say you heard about that Shiny app series and you want to get some of those videos, we have all of those available, plus 32 labs that we've recorded. And every 2 weeks, I'm doing these learning labs, and each of these are recorded. All the code, the bonuses, all of that goes into this program called Learning Labs Pro. And if you become a Pro member, you get access to all of that unlimited, plus any new labs that I release going into the future. It's $19 a month. It's a great way to keep yourself learning. If you feel like you're in a rut, if you feel like you need to have some specific analyses, and you take a look at our list and we have them, definitely sign up, get into it. It's a really great program. All right, so for this learning lab, the agenda today, we're going to be doing a demo. I'm going to show off this really cool Twitter hashtag sentiment analysis analyzer. We're going to talk about a business case, the use of sentiment analysis for branding, for being able to understand what's going on social media for your company's brand, and show you how you can use this Twitter hashtag analyzer as a way to understand what's going on for your brand. Then what we'll do is get into the 80-20 concepts. We'll first talk about the Twitter API, how to connect up to it, what you need to know about the Twitter data, what it gives you access to, and so on. Then we'll switch gears and we'll talk about text mining and sentiment analysis. We'll go over what it is and how we do it in R. And then we'll jump into the meat of the presentation, which is the 30-minute demo. And this is going to be full code. We've got 2 scripts plus a Shiny app for the pro members. And it's going to be really cool. It's really neat. And then at the end, we're going to talk about career acceleration, and we'll talk more about Shiny, the capabilities that it offers, and how you can build your career using Shiny and helping your organization with it. This week, we have 2 bonuses for our Learning Lab Pro members. So if you subscribe to Pro, you're going to be getting this first bonus, which is the Shiny hashtag app. And this is going to be the thing that I show you when I do the demo. And then the second bonus, and this is actually a kind of a surprise bonus. It's really interesting because most people do geocoding and they have to pay for it because they utilize Google Analytics and the Google Cloud platform's geocode capability. But there's another way to do it, and you can do it for free. And this is a free script that I'm going to be giving to the pro members to do geocoding. And you can see what you do. You just type in London, UK, and it gives you the bounding box. It gives you the latitude and longitude, and it gives you everything you need for that particular, it converts that address into a latitude and longitude. So that's what geocoding is. And you can do it for free using the script. So that's a nice little perk as well. All right. So let's move on to the business case. And I want to talk about this concept called brand intelligence. So we've all heard of business intelligence, which is understanding the internal of your business and how you're functioning with KPIs and those sorts of things, revenue, quality. So that's inside your company. But if you look externally to your company, you've got this thing called branding, and you want to know how well you're doing out there in the world. And that's a function of social media. That's a function of what people are talking about and how your customers are interacting with your products and how they're communicating that to other customers. So people talk to each other, and what we want to know is what they're talking about and how well and how positively or negatively they're talking about your brand. So let's talk about a brand assessment. Here's the fact. Ideas spread. So people aren't just kind of in a box, right? We've got Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all these social media platforms that are out there. Plus we have forums, we have people talking about products. We have YouTube, where when your product has a failure, people talk about that failure and they come up with solutions. You've all seen that. I ran into it personally a few weeks ago. The company that makes my refrigerator, the back froze on it, and I had to go to YouTube and find out that everyone else is having this problem. And then I find out, oh, there's a class action lawsuit and this and that. So this is the type of stuff. This is the world. This is how that communication happens. That's a negative situation, but there's also positive situations. So you've got Twitter, you've got when your brand is involved with something good, then you have people talking about it as well. So you want to know what your customers are saying, and you want to identify problems, small problems, before they become class action lawsuits. And then you also want to identify the things that your company is doing well at. And most importantly, you want to identify what your customers care about. And that's what you can do with social media. So ideas spread. What are your customers saying? So these are a few different brands that I put up here today. And we'll be focusing, I'm going to focus on one of them, but these are all like really powerful brands. They have great reputations for the most part. And these are just, very highly valued companies just because of their brand is so good. I'm going to be taking a look at Coca-Cola today, but you can obviously do this analysis for any type of company. So this is a tweet, and this is just one of hundreds of thousands of tweets that are going on right now about Coca-Cola. And I want to showcase this one because this is an example of positive sentiment. And we're going to be talking about sentiment a little bit today, especially when we get into text analysis. But what we're seeing here is for this particular tweet, this person, Crop and Soil, sent a tweet out, and they're talking about this award that was given out about sustainability, and somebody received an award. It was sponsored by Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola is being lumped in and identified as being part of this tweet. And you can see that here with this @ symbol Coca-Cola. And you can see what they're talking about. So different topics. So one is this hashtag sustainability. You can also see they're talking about community here. And these are things that Coca-Cola is doing really well at, because this particular tweet scored very well on positive sentiment because they're talking about good stuff. So this can highlight areas where your people, where your consumers, your customers are positively viewing the brand. And what Coca-Cola wants to do is to keep this up. This helps their brand. Now, let's flip it on the negative aspect. So this is an example of a negative tweet that has negative sentiment. So they're talking about issues. So you can see right here, you've got issue, you've got non, you've got all of these words in here that this particular person, Angelique Tashi, is talking about these Coca-Cola, and they're referencing Coca-Cola right here in a negative light. So while they're not saying anything necessarily too bad about Coca-Cola, they're identifying recycling as an issue, and they're talking about government, and really this is all about this is all about recycling. So this is a negative tweet, and this is something Coca-Cola really wants to pay attention to, because this is a key issue that their customers are very in tune about: sustainability and recycling. So they need to really focus on that, and they don't want their company. They want their company to be viewed as a company that is helping the situation, not hurting the situation. And Coca-Cola, obviously, they make beverages, aluminum cans, plastic bottles, those sorts of things. So they want to do whatever they can to help the environment and help their customers know that they're trying to be as sustainable as possible. So negative tweets and negative sentiment can highlight these key issues that they want to make sure that they don't get too negative, and then all of a sudden they've got a massive issue on their hand on social media. So how are they going to keep track of all this stuff that's going on? Well, I just built this app that does that. Basically, ideas spread. What are your customers saying? So we're going to take a look at this app. I'm going to show you how it works, and we're going to do a quick demo and show you how Coca-Cola can use this application. Okay, so let me go over here and check out the app. So this is the app that I built, and I'm just going to open it up in my browser. It'll take a second to load up because it's got to pull in, it's got to connect up to Twitter and pull in some tweets. So right now I'm looking at the hashtag COVID-19. This is something that, obviously everyone's talking about right now. And it's not necessarily from a brand perspective, but it's just something that, people are interested in, and I wanted to see what's going on with it. So here's how the app works. The app pulls in 100 tweets, and I can change this up to 1,500 tweets. And these are all 100 tweets, and I can see from a discrete perspective, I have what's called the sentiment polarity. So each one of these tweets, I've aggregated the sentiment by taking the positive and negative words and calculating what the value is after you subtract out the negatives and positives and take the difference. So anything that's positive is a positive tweet. So if we go over here, we can see this one says hope and divine protection are not enough. The start of Passover, truly want to be a partner with God. So this is more of a religious tweet, but you can see some of these have some positive air to them. And then you can see other ones. This one talks about criminal cover-up, held accountable, failures. This is a negative one, and it also looks like it's related to Trump. So this is how this app can be used. Let's take it from the perspective, though, of a company. So I'm going to instead, I'm going to swap out this hashtag here. I'm going to just put in Coca-Cola, and I have no clue what's going to come up. So I'm just going to Coca-Cola, and notice I swap this out for our @ symbol. So @ is going to find out anywhere that company is referenced. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump up the tweets to say 750 or so. The tweet proximity, I have it set right now to Pittsburgh, PA. And we can adjust this search radius. So I can drop it down to about 600. Right now it's covering the entire Northeast. So I can drop it down to about 600 to get a little bit more local to Pittsburgh, PA. And yeah, that's basically how the app works. So I'm going to click submit. It's going to take a second because it's got to pull in 750 tweets. And there's a lot of information that comes with tweets. And we'll see that here in a little bit. So this has pulled in all 750 tweets. And you can see this one is the one that we were actually looking at earlier. This one is Crop and Soil, where they got the award. This one is another positive tweet. So you can see that this one has what goes in with great movies, great family and friends. Well, of course, it's the best drink around. Coca-Cola has you covered. So that might be an ad that they ran or so on. And then you can see there's some negative ones too. So this one's Mountain Dew, Pepsi, what idiot wrote Mountain Dew, blah, 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 stupid, stupid, stupid. So obviously this person's a little bit upset about, something related to soda, and so on. So you can see so a company can monitor their brand, and both at a discrete level, they can see, what the outliers are and what people are talking about, and make sure that there's nothing that they're doing that is upsetting people. They can also do it geographically. So we can see that tweet right now, I'm located in Pittsburgh, PA. We could do something like San Francisco. And if I submit that, it'll update the app, and then we should get a whole new geographic demographic of people. It looks like there's some fewer people that are tweeting about Coca-Cola. We can see that here's a really negative one. That one's got some pretty aggressive language in it. But yeah, you can basically see what people are talking about, both the positive and the negative. And then the word clouds aggregate it. So you can see at a high level, what people are liking about that brand. And it's certain things like they great, like, grateful, win, smoothly. So these are all things that are people like about Coca-Cola. Okay. All right, cool. So that's how the app works. And we'll talk a lot more about what goes into building this app as we go through this. So the Twitter API, that's what I want to talk about next, is how to get set up with Twitter API in R and how to use it. So Twitter, if you've never used Twitter before, Twitter is just a massively popular social media platform. In 2019, Twitter had 145 million daily active users. That means every day there's 145 million people communicating on Twitter, and it's probably grown since then. They also have an open developer API, and this is tweet level data that contains things like screen names, locations, all sorts of different open information that they have that they're able to share with people who want the data. And most importantly, you can get the text out of that data. So they have it on the tweet level. You can get the text. You can get a lot of other information as well. And it's just really powerful for creating these corpuses and creating this data that you have about brand, about different hashtags, about basically anything that's trending. You can collect information on it, anything that people are talking about. So that brings me to the next point, this developer API. That's what we're going to be talking about today, because that's how you collect this data. So Twitter has a developer API. And if you go to this website here, there's a link right down here. You can just type in developer and Twitter and Google it. It'll take you to this. And this is how you get set up. But if you want to access the data in R actually has another package that is set up to allow you to pull this data that Twitter has made publicly available right into R. And it has a bunch of different cool things about it. So the package that we're going to be talking about is RTweet. RTweet is in this column here, and there's a couple other Twitter APIs, and you can see RTweet just checks all the boxes. It's super feature rich. I mean, there's tons and tons of data. We're only going to scratch the surface of what you can do with it in this lesson. So this is where you would go to get to this R package. You can just Google R tweet and it'll take you to this. The thing that I want to show you is the one article on R tweet, and this is how you get set up. So if you go to R tweet, this is R tweet. And if you go to this article, if you have never created an account for Twitter developer, it has the obtaining and using access tokens right here. And you're going to want to go down through and follow these steps in order to set up an application, and make sure you follow it exactly, because that's going to allow you to complete the lesson that I'm showcasing today once we get into the code. So you're going to want to become familiar with this, and there's a little bit of setup required, but the good news is once you get through it, then you're done and you can start accessing this information. So that's pretty much all I think I need to say about the how to connect up. So we're going to be using that rtweets package. This is the type of data that you can get from rtweet. We're mainly going to be focusing on this column over here, so you can get search data, and you can also stream live tweets by hashtag or by location and so on. So the search capability allows you to access tweets that have happened in the past up to, I think you can do up to 18,000. You can even do more than that, but you can only pull in 18,000 tweets per every 15 minutes. And that's just part of the Twitter developer rules. And then the streaming tweets. So what you do is you provide a time limit for timeout, and it collects all the tweets, or like a sampling of tweets that have happened over that specific time period. Over the next like 60 seconds, if you put 60 seconds in there, it'll pull tweets that happen within that 60 second. And then you can mine those for things like trends and what is happening right now, what people are talking about. You can also do a lot more with that. And I'm telling you, our tweet has a lot of features to it. So you can get friends. So if you have the friend, if you have their handle, you can find friends, you can find users, you can find followers. You can search users, you can get trends. So if you type in, like San Francisco or, another trending search term, it'll get you trends on that and so on. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with this rtweets library. We'll mainly, again, be focusing on these two, and actually more specifically, we'll be focusing on this for the app. All right, so we talked about how to access Twitter, the API. Now what we need to do is talk about, okay, once we get this data, what are we going to do with it? And we're going to be using this package called Tidytext to do sentiment analysis. So that's what I want to talk about next. So Tidytext is this really cool package, and I'll tell you, I am not a text all-star. I'll be the first to admit that. I've done a few projects for some clients like 5 years ago with some text. And since then, I just really don't use it that often. I deal a lot more with time series. I deal a lot more with structured business data. I'm not dealing with unstructured text that much. But what I will say is that this package, honestly, makes me feel like I'm an expert, because it's so easy to use. They've got great documentation. So here's a little bit about Tidytext. It's been downloaded over 1 million times, so it's popular. And what I found is that it's really easy to use. It has tools that are integrated for 2 different things. Well, probably several more things, but the things that I'm using it for is tokenizing, which is taking our text that comes in a paragraph form and breaking it out, getting rid of the junk in it, and just keeping the words or the n-grams, but we'll be looking at just words today, that matter. And that's where the power comes, is that it's basically a cleaning capability. And then it also has tools for doing sentiment analysis, and it's all integrated. And then finally, it's also nice that it works in the Tidyverse. So my experience with it, I'm not an expert in text, but honestly, I feel like one right now after using it, because it's so simple and easy to use, and I'm able to get insights out of it without having to spend a lot of time figuring out how to deal with like stop words and this and that and cleaning text. So here's how it works. One of the main functionalities is taking a tweet. So we've got this paragraph of text. It's got @ symbols in here. It's got periods, commas, question marks, all sorts of stuff, slashes. And what you want to do is take this raw unstructured text and make it structured. So it takes a tweet that's raw, this paragraph, and it converts it into data. And it uses this unnest tokens, and you basically just, it's that simple. It converts it right into a nice structured text, and then we can do some text mining on it. So that's the first thing. The second thing it does is it has tools in there for sentiment analysis. And what sentiment analysis is each of those words that are in that paragraph in Twitter have some sort of polarity to them. Some of them are neutral. They don't really add, or they're, words like the or and have no real connotation. So they don't have any value to them. But some words are positively connotated and negatively connotated. And often it depends how they're used in the sentence. But we have these different corpuses and these different dictionaries that have already taken a look at a lot of these words and calculated a polarity or a sentiment that can be assigned to that particular word. So all we're doing is basically taking that Twitter text, scraping out the words that don't matter that much, and then the words that do matter, we're trying to assign some sort of sentiment to them. So you can see there's a couple different dictionaries. One is this one from Bing, and it just has two categories. One is negative, and it could be, and the other is positive. So some of these, like abolish, has a negative sentiment, and other words like friend would have positive sentiment. Then there's the Affin dictionary, which is just a different type of dictionary. And what they do is they assign an actual value, so a magnitude to it, and also a sign, which is negative or positive. So negative is negative. Negative is obviously a bad sentiment. So words like abandon has a -2. So it's going to be twice as negative as something that is -1. So this one is -3. So this is one, abandon. So abhor, if they put that in their Twitter, it's worth -3. But if they have abandon, it's only worth -2. So that's what they're doing, is they're actually assigning a magnitude to how negative that term is. So the key is that you can get some different analyses here. We'll mainly be using this one today, but you can use either. And then what I've done is taken that sentiment analysis and then done it for a bunch of different tweets. And what we can do is we can actually plot the different polarity by the tweet, and we can see how negative, and we can then focus in on some of the outliers. So we want to know which ones are on the extremes for our brand. So who is talking super positively about us and who is talking about super negatively about us. So like this is an example of a super positive one. Again, they're talking about, a lot of faith in God. And they're saying, in reference to the COVID-19, they're clearly talking about faith. So that's what you're able to do, but you can do the same thing for your brands. All right, workflow. So what we're going to be doing today, once we get into the code, is we're basically going to take 3 steps. First step is going to be focusing on the Twitter API. Second step is going to be focusing on Tidytext, cleaning up that text data, getting it ready to do the analysis. And then in these first 2 steps, we're going to make some visualizations, and then we're going to put it into this third step. For my pro members, they're going to be getting this app that automates the brand sentiment analysis. Okay, so here is the Shiny app, and I have some text here showcasing what we're going to be focusing in on. So as we go through the analysis, you're going to see me creating first the leaflet map, then the Plotly, and then the Wordcloud. And then what we do is then we integrate those into our Shiny app. All right, so let's get to the code.
A lot of the questions that have been asked, if you feel like your question's been ignored, it's probably because it's about to be answered in the code. So I was just kind of trying to save my fingers a little bit. I've been typing this whole time, by the way, Matt. So I think people are really interested in the topic, and
good.
I think the coding will explain a lot of the questions that are out there.
Yeah, the code's going to uncover a bunch of different stuff. So, and what we'll do is at the end, we'll answer everyone's questions. So for my pro members, let's just talk about kind of this project that I have set up. So I have a little bit of data in here. So this data is going to be used in the O2 text mining sentiment analysis. And one is on the COVID-19, and we'll primarily be using that. I have some scripts here. So this is the geocode for free script that I'm giving to my pro members. So you can do free geocoding. You don't have to do it using the Google Maps API, which costs, I think, like, you have to sign up for an account, and it costs $5 per 1,000 or so geocodes. So so you'll be getting that script. You can do unlimited geocodes. We'll then be the main things that we're going to be focusing on is this O1, which is our Twitter API. That's what we're going to be doing first. And then O2, which is the text mining and sentiment analysis. And then the third piece is the app.r file. Again, this is what I'm giving my pro members. And you can check this thing out. It is a 234 line app that when I click the play button, and you can see it's got the Plotly, the Leaflet, and the Wordcloud in here. And when I hit the run button, it pulls up my app. And you can see behind the scenes, it's running all of the server processing and doing the text analysis for us. Okay. So that'll be going to my pro members, but everyone will get to see the O1 and O2. And that's what I'll be going through on this coding tutorial. So let me stop this and we'll get started with the Twitter real-time API. All right, so the first thing we're going to be doing is the Twitter API and the libraries that we're going to be going through. There's 4 different libraries that we're going to use. The first one is the rtweet, which is the main Twitter API that we're going to be using. The next 2 are mapping libraries, so tmap tools and Leaflet. And then the third one is the tidyverse. And then what I'm doing is I'm sourcing the script geocode for free. So that's going to be one of the bonuses. The first thing that we need to do, so as I discussed in the Twitter API section, in order to be able to run this, you need to have a consumer key, you need to have a secret key, and you need to have an app set up. So you need to follow these instructions on this from this article here, rtweet.info/articles/auth.html. You just follow those instructions and you'll be able to set up an account. Once you have the account set up, you'll create an app. And once you have your app created, the app will have a name. The app will have a consumer key. And now I have it going to my consumer key, which I want to keep private. And then my consumer secret. And you'll replace these with your own consumer secret once you create your own app. So once you do that, then you can run this create token, and we can store that as the token variable. Okay. Now you can see how it opened up the browser. It's saying the authentication is complete. Please close this page, return to R. So it's authenticated me. And you can see that down here in our browser. Now that we're authenticated, so we have a token. If I hit Control and Enter, you can see that I have a token. The secret is hidden, so you can't see that. But we have a token created. And now when I use any of the rtweet functionality, I'll be able to use that token to be able to run this. So there's actually a token argument. If I do just put a tab here, you see it just put token in here. So you can do token equals token, or if you've already set it up, then once we get into searching, it'll automatically detect it. So we don't actually even need to put it into most of these functions. Okay, so now let's talk about, so we talked about creating a token, and I have my token created. The next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna use the API through rtweet, and we're gonna search some tweets. So what searching tweets does is it allows us to pull tweet history that has happened in the past. So within the past near recent history, we can pull in n number of tweets that are related to a particular search, or you can leave the search blank and it'll just pull random tweets. So typically how this is used is you'll have some sort of query that you'll want to run. So you might be searching COVID-19, or you might be searching at and your brand, or you might just be searching something you're interested in. That is all possibilities, and the possibilities are essentially endless. So you're going to have a query that you have, and then you're going to have the number of tweets that you want to pull in that are related to that. And what it's going to do is it's going to search and try and pull in as many tweets as possible up until it hits this number. There's also a language. Normally we want to pull in English, so we set lang equal to en, but you can do other languages as well. And then the other thing that we normally do is we set include retweets equal to false. So this reduces a lot of the noise, because as you know, on Twitter, people can like things, they can retweet it, and you don't want to count those retweets as tweets because it doubles or triples or quadruples your tweet counts. So when we run this, this is going to pull in 100 tweets on COVID-19, and it'll take a second, it runs, and you get 90 columns of data on these on each of these tweets at the tweet level. So you can see things like you've got a screen name, and this is their user handle. You've got the text, which contains the full text of their entire tweet, and you have this for up to whatever number of people that you put this in. Again, you can increase this up as high as you want. After you hit 18,000, it only allows you to do 18,000 tweets per every 15 minutes. So that's the only limitation. And I think even our tweets, so if you want to run it overnight, you can do even higher tweet counts, but it'll take, multiple hours to pull in all of that data. Okay. So what I have already done is I've run this for 2,000 tweets, and I'm not going to run it in this lesson. I just increased this up to 2,000, but I don't want to eat into my limit in case we want to see more of the demos. So I'm just reading in these tweets that I've already saved on COVID-19, and we're going to use that for the remainder of this particular part of the lesson. And I've stored those here in an RDS file right here. Okay. So let's take a look at the results. Let's just first glimpse it and see what we've got here. So when I said there's 90 rows, there's a lot of information. So we have things like follower counts. So this is that person, how many followers they have. We have the location, and this is a free text field that they must have entered. So they said planet Earth. They have all sorts of information. A lot of it's missing values. So it's not, some of those columns aren't going to be that useful to us. The important stuff though, so you've got things like screen name, you've got your text of that particular tweet. You have the URLs that are in that tweet. So if they have and they have hashtags in that tweet. So these are all the hashtags that user used in that tweet, and so on. So let's examine some of those. We've got user info. So that would be things like screen name, location, description. If I just pull in those columns for the first 5 people, I can see we've got something that looks like this, and you've got a little bit of information on that user. The next thing, the tweet info. So I'm going to be looking at text and URLs next. So these are the text of that tweet for the first 5 tweets. And then if that person included a URL, which is very common to include in tweets, you're sharing something, you want people to click on it to go to a website. So if they have a URL in their tweet or multiple URLs, you can get that information too. The next thing is hashtags. So let's take a look at those. And hashtags come in, and I'm just going to run this section of code here. Hashtags are actually nested because you can have multiple hashtags. So each tweet can have many hashtags. And you can see this one has 5, this one has 2. So we can use this function called unnest wider. And what that does is allows me to look to see how many hashtags are being included in each of these tweets. So I can see that first one had COVID-19 and coronavirus. Second one has these, and third one, and so on. So you can get the hashtags, and then let's see, the URLs unnested. We can see these are the full expanded URLs. So you can get the URLs that are in each of those tweets as well. Cool. So that's pretty much the high level 80-20 of searching tweets. Now, I'm going to switch gears. I'm just going to talk very briefly about streaming tweets because this is super popular as well. I know it's used for a lot of academic analysis uses these streaming tweets features. So basically how it works is it's very similar to searching tweets, except you put a timeout in here, and then I'll just run this. It's going to run for 5 seconds, and it's going to pull in a sampling of tweets. So it's finished, and it's pulled in 268 tweets, and you can see that the columns are very similar to what we had for the for the searching tweets. The difference is these are live. I mean, this is exactly what people are talking about right now at this second, versus what they talked about maybe 5-10 minutes ago, maybe a day ago, depending on how long. So if you want real time what people are talking about, you can use this stream tweets feature. Okay, so once you get the hang of this, the rest is pretty simple. We've got a bunch of text data. We've got a bunch of usernames. We've got some analysis that we want to do. Now, there's one thing that I haven't discussed yet, and it's how to focus in on different geographic regions, because quite frequently, what we want to do is, instead of just examining all the Twitter talk that's happening across the world, is we want to focus in by geographic regions. And this is very common. So if you want to understand, say you're a company, say you're a restaurant that is operating in Pittsburgh, PA, you don't want to search on all the tweets that are in the world. You want to know just the tweets that are happening in Pittsburgh, because that's where your customers are located. So you can isolate those using geocoding. Now, the problem with geocoding, and there's this function called lookup chords that comes in comes with the RTweets package, and it's just kind of like a helper. But if I run this, I'm going to get an error. Or actually, I'm not getting an error, but it just returns null. So this is a box, which is called a bounding box, which is just basically a box that covers an area, and then point. But you can see it's returning null. That's because this requires the Google Maps API, and there's a financial cost associated with that. Now, here's what it should look like, and this one's pre-programmed, so you get this one for free, USA, when you download RTweets. So you can see that the bounding box has this coordinate system. It's also got the latitude and longitude for the central point for USA, and that's what it should look like. So what I'm giving you is a function that I've coded up called geocode for free, and that's located over here in these scripts. And what this does is it's a replacement for this lookup chords. You can use it anywhere that lookup chords, you could use it with the RTweet package. So when I run this, you can see it takes a second, and it actually pulls in the bounding box and the point in the same exact format that it expects here. And it's very similar. So if I run the geocode for free USA and look at it versus the pre-programmed one, so the pre-programmed had latitude, longitude of 36 and negative 95. This one's 39 and negative 100, relatively close. And then the bounding box is relatively similar too. Okay, so we can use this geocode for free. So if we want to stream tweets that are just in this geographic region here, we can do that now. And my real-time tweets, it's running, and just give it a second. And it's pulled in my tweets just from the US, okay? Or excuse me, just from the UK, London, UK. Cool. We can do the same thing for search tweets, and searching tweets has this geocode. And when you search tweets, what you need to do is you need to not only provide a, what it does is it takes a point system and then adds a radius around it. So what this would do is, if I run this here, what this near geocode function does, which is another function I'm giving you guys, what that does is it converts it to the point system plus 100 miles. So when it gets that string, what it's going to do is it's going to look for any text on COVID-19 up to 300, excluding real-time, excluding retweets in English language that are in London within a 100-mile radius. So that's basically what we're doing here. So the search tweets is going to return this ST object. You can see it's downloading, it's done. And if we look here in the, I want to see if they have the locations. So you can see England, United Kingdom, London, England, Henley on Thames. So this is all happening locally in the UK. All right. Cool. So now that we have some data, well, we can do some fun stuff with it. So I want to show you, it's got this geocodes, and initially I got excited until I saw that there was a ton of NAs in here. So I can check out what's in there. And so for 300 out of 300, unfortunately, only one observation has coordinates in there. So we can't really utilize that. It's not a very good feature for us, because what I want to do is I want to map it. So that's what we're going to talk about next. So mapping, I'm going to use this thing called Leaflet, and here's basically a 30-second intro to Leaflet. Basically, you take some data that's in a data frame or a tibble, and this is some quakes data, and you give it a latitude, a longitude, and then you can have other features in there like magnitude, which is this feature here, and basically you can put points on, and it creates a nice map for you. So what I wanted to do was map where all these tweets are coming from, but unfortunately, if I run this, there's only one tweet that was returned. And you can see that it's located right here, just outside of London. And that was out of 300 tweets. So we can't do that. So I got a new idea. And what I wanted to do was, instead, I want to use a circle to indicate the location of the tweets. And this is going to be important in my app, because I want people to know when they're searching how big that search radius is, and I want them to be able to see kind of where their data is coming from geographically. So what I'm doing right here is I'm turning this into a tibble that just looks like this, location, and then it's got it all split out here. And then I'm using a little bit of dplyr and tidier to separate, add a distance, and convert to numeric. So when I do that, when I run this section of code here, I get something that looks like this, a location, a latitude, a longitude. And so basically how my app will work is all the person that's using the app is going to have to type in is just an address, like a London, UK, and then they'll give a mileage, a radius of 1,000 miles, 100 miles, whatever they want. And these will be the inputs, and I'll be able to convert that to latitude or longitude and a distance. And then what I can do is I can use the, down here with Leaflet, I can use the latitude and longitude to create a marker and to add a circle with the radius equal to whatever that miles is converted into, I believe this is latitude and longitude, or a radius. So if I look at this, this is a 1,000 mile radius around London, and that's where my tweets are coming from. Okay, so that's going to be useful. And if I change this to, say, 100, and then run this again, we can now see it's shrunk that significantly. So this is a 100 mile radius around London. And London's actually, from a distance perspective, it's pretty small. So 100 mile radius is still quite a large radius for London. It's not necessarily as much in the US, but for London, it is. Okay, cool. So that is Twitter real-time API. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Now let's get into some really cool stuff, taking that text data from Twitter API and doing something with it, doing a sentiment analysis. So I'm moving over to O2 text mining sentiment.r. That's this file right here. And the libraries that I'm going to load now is Tidytext. I'm going to load this library called text data, and that's for the AFIN dictionary, just so I can show you guys that. I'm going to load Plotly and Wordcloud. So this will help us develop the interactive visualizations and the Wordcloud visualization. And then the normal stuff that I always load, Tidyverse and Tidyquant, which has a lot of the core functionality from the Tidyverse. All right, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to read in my tweets COVID, and this is a data set that I've saved previously. It's just from right here. So I'm reading that in. It's 2,000 tweets on COVID-19. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that data set, which looks like this. It's my Twitter data from the search tweets function. And then I'm just going to select the text column, which is this right here. It's each one of those tweets. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a row ID to it. So I've got now a row ID. And then I'm going to use this Tidytext function called unnest text, or unnest tokens. And what we're going to do is run this. And when we do that, it creates a column called Word that came from this text column. Okay. And yeah, and now it's tidy. So all of the crap that's in there, like the question marks and punctuation and anything that's not of value, has been stripped out. And now we have the data, the text data, that's going to allow us to really do some analysis. So now that I have it tokenized, we can do things like count the word frequencies. So COVID-19 is obviously the highest frequency. You know, something like the appears a lot, HTTPS, and some of this stuff's not going to be too important, but some of it will be. So next, we're going to move into sentiment analysis. And what I want to show you is Tidytext has this function called get sentiments. And if you set the lexicon, they have a couple different lexicons. The first one is Bing, and that comes from, I believe, the Microsoft Bing service. And they've got a bunch of different, they've got almost 7,000 words in here, and they've categorized them as either negative or positive sentiment. And then there's another one is the affin library. So if you do this one, this is about almost 2,500 words, and they have an actual magnitude associated with them as well. So the next thing once we do is once we have these dictionaries, we want to merge those with our tweets. So we've got our tokenized tweets, and what I want to do is I want to do an inner join on the on where the words are located in this dictionary. So when I do that, notice it cuts our data down quite significantly. We went from 60,000 down to 3,000, and that's because only 3,300 of these words were present in this Bing dictionary. Okay, so we're going to save that now, and now we can utilize the sentiment to be able to do our analysis, our sentiment analysis. So next, we're going to move on to measuring sentiment. The first thing is simple. We can just count the sentiment because this is a category. So negative sentiment appears 1,500 times, positive appears 1,700. So it's roughly neutral, slightly positive sentiment. And then, but we can get into more specifics. So we can search sentiment by user, and that's what we're doing here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take my sentiment, which is just this here, 3,300. And then what I'm going to do is select negative word because we don't need that. And now I have by row ID for each word that was matched, I have whether or not it was a negative sentiment. So then what I can do is I can count that. So I can count that negative appears once in row ID, and then positive appears once, and then I can pivot that. So I have negative and positive next to each other. So each row ID is now one row. And so for example, this row ID 7 has 2 positive words and 1 negative word. So if you subtract these two, you can get the difference. So this is a positive. This would be indicative of a slightly positive tweet. And then this one has 2 negative words. So that would be indicative of a slightly negative tweet. So that's what we call polarity or sentiment. And then what we can do is we can re-add back in the tweets that are based on this row ID, and we can start to see, what they're saying. So this, we've got the screen name and then the text in here, and we can see that this one's talking about criminal senator downplayed coronavirus. So this is definitely a negative tweet. This one is a machine learning model using X-rays. So this is a good thing. They've developed a machine learning model. It's a positive tweet, and so on. So we can now save that, and we can then use it to make our first visualization for our sentiment. This is just going to be a helper function. So this label wrap, what it does is it's going to take this text and allow me to display it in a plot, so it's not just one long line that continues on forever. It's going to cut it off at 60 characters, and then it's going to add it to a new line, so that way it looks like a paragraph. So that's what this label wrap function does. And then when I do that to my data, I've got this text formatted column that I'm adding in here with a row ID, and you can see there's a /n. That's a new line character, and then it'll have a screen name. So I'm going to save that as data formatted, and all I'm basically doing is going to be the hover text. And now I have my data formatted. I'm going to use a little bit of ggplot code here. And what this is going to do is create my ggplot, which looks something like this. But this is a static visualization. And let me explain what I'm doing here. If I break this up, I've got row ID and sentiment. So I've got my row ID, which is the Twitter user, and I've got my sentiment, which is going to be that polarity that I was talking about. And then I'm adding a line and a point. And what that's doing is adding these points here and this line here. And then what I'm going to do is add a smoother. So that's what this line is right here. And this is just going to track kind of the trend through, not necessarily time, but by user. If they get lumped together, you can see where there's users might be spiking. And then I'm adding here a couple of H lines. These are horizontal lines, and this is going to be the mean. So this is the average. So you can detect what the average polarity is, and you can see it's mostly neutral, just very slightly positive. And then I have I'm calculating an interquartile range and doing 1.96 plus and minus. So this is going to be for outliers. So now I can have a visual seeing anything that's above this line or below this line are the extremes, and that's what brands want to be focused in on, right? So when I create that ggplot, we can use this ggplotly function to create an interactive plot. And now I've got hover text. So you see when I hover over, I've got the text and the screen name and the row ID. So I can actually like isolate just this one here, and I can see what that person was talking about. And it becomes a really good visualization to have to be able to isolate specific tweets that have happened. And then this layout piece here, I'm just going to add a range slider. So if you've never seen one of those, it's just a handy tool to kind of like hone in on different time ranges. Okay, so that's basically what we're doing, and that's going to be the first visualization, or the second visualization that we add into our app. And then the last one is the word cloud. So if you've never used a word cloud, basically what a word cloud is it uses the frequency to highlight which words are being talked about the most. So what we want to do typically is separate it by positive and negative to see which negative words appear most frequently and which positive words appear most frequently. And then the word cloud just increases the size of the words based on the frequency. So the first step to making a word cloud is just calculate the frequency. And we can see support appears the most, crisis appears the second most, like is the third most, and so on. So we calculate our word frequency by sentiment. And then we do a little bit of pivoting here. Actually, I'm going to skip this section here because that's the old way of doing it. The new way of doing it is just taking the top features, which we're going to take the top 100. So you can see now it's 100 by 3 as opposed to being 947 by 3. It'd take you forever to make a word cloud with 947 words on it. And then what we're going to do is basically just convert this to a factor. So it's a categorical column now. And I have positive being the first category, negative being the second category. And then we're going to use this function. It's basically ggplot, except this one right here. And that's the only difference, is it makes a geom text word cloud area. So if I just run this bit of code here, you can see what it does. And it'll take a second to run. Let's see if it went. Okay, it did. And it's kind of tough to see here. It needs some formatting, but we've got all of the different features here, and they're colored by whether or not they're positive or negative. The next thing I want to do is add a facet wrap and some formatting. So when I do that, it makes the chart look pretty. And again, these word clouds, they take a second to populate. There it goes. So you can see the word frequency. These are the positive words. These are the negative words. All right. Okay. And then now we have everything through our analysis, and we just need to integrate it into a web app. So that's the only last step. And for my pro members, they're going to be getting this. So I'm going to click the run app and I'm going to show you what we've just built. So literally, the analysis that we've just done underneath the hood, this app is running the 3 different visualizations. And the only difference is that I've swapped out some of the variables for these little slicers. So if I want to do something like Coca-Cola, so let me do a different one. I'll do something like, let me do NFL. And we'll do this. And I'll do a different location. I want to do, say, New York City. And we'll put the mileage down because New York's pretty heavily populated. So all I did was I swapped out some of these variables, and you can see we've got New York City. That's what we're looking at right now. We can see all of these different tweets that are happening about NFL, the positive fans, you know, things about anything about the fans, amazing, top, best. Some of the negative stuff, you know, rumors, Madden apparently is negative, breaking, miss, mock. So they might want to look into this mock term and find out where that's happening in their data and just kind of and see what's going on. But basically, the key point here is we've got our visualizations, and all we did was we used Shiny as the vehicle to put those visualizations in here. So somebody else we can ship this app off to, we can put it on a website, or we can put it internal to our company and allow marketing people to utilize this app. So that way they don't have to, you know, read through reports. They can interact with the data real time, and they can utilize your analysis without you being there, and you've basically just automated the process of doing what we call brand intelligence, right? You just give them this app and they're able to search their brands. Okay, so that is the power of Shiny. That is really what one of the key takeaways should be is how beneficial Shiny can be. So we talked a lot about, you know, Tidytext. We've talked a lot about Twitter, but really the power is being able to bottle it up in this program called Shiny and being able to ship it to other people in your company, so that way they can make decisions and not leave it up to you and your data science department to make all the decisions. All right, so this is how career acceleration, this is what I want to talk about now, is how Shiny apps help you accelerate your career. You see, Shiny is critical. It's critical to putting any data science into production, because really people cannot leverage your information unless you put it into a way that's able to be consumed by non-technical people. You know, you've got business stakeholders, you've got people who know all the ins and outs about the business or about their customers or about the brand and the marketing, but they aren't data scientists. They need to be able to use data science, and that's where your value comes into the company, is because you can give them the tools, so that way they can analyze using your data science, but without actually having to be data scientists themselves. So my career tip number 1 is give businesses applications. So apps are what businesses need. They cannot scale reports. They don't have, or they do have access to all the tools. So they have cloud and servers. So every company is switching to AWS or Azure right now. They're all doing Microsoft Teams. They're all doing this and that. Literally, all of these companies are going through a digital revolution right now, and they all have access now, and which means you and your team has access to new tools that you can leverage to be able to build these applications. So businesses need your analysis in the right form. They can't take reports. Businesses can't scale that. So you need to solve these problems with applications, and Shiny is the vehicle to help. So you can make apps like this, where it's a forecasting app. You can make apps like this, which is an employee attrition prevention app that analyzes your employee churn and provides recommendations. You can make an app like this, which is a financial app. It doesn't matter what industry or what department you're in, apps will help. It's just solving problems and that matter to your business. So Career tip number 2, say no to reports. If you're providing people reports on a daily basis, you need to be providing them applications. People are not going to be reading reports. Something like this is painful to read for most people, unless you're someone like me who really likes multivariate forecasting of crude oil spot prices using neural networks. I get into that, but most other people don't. So you need to be aware of that, aware of your audience. Your audience can digest and consume applications. So here's an example of what we build at Business Science University. Business Science University teaches you how to build these applications. So you can see there's, and this is actually an application that's hosting other applications. So we have, a finance app here. We have a meta app here, which houses other apps. So if I launch this, it's basically an app that's built in our Shiny developer course, and you can open these applications and search them too, and so on. And basically, it's just different applications that you can build through the courses that I offer. So you want to be able to build these applications. How do you learn how to do that? I have a system for you, and this is a system that works. It has helped a lot of people get jobs. It's helped a lot of people get promotions. It's helped a lot of students really understand how to apply data science to their business. So if this sounds like you've struggled figuring out how to apply data science to business, or how am I going to learn this? This program is going to teach you all of the tools and techniques, and it's going to teach you fast. You're going to learn within 6 months. You're going to go from here at the beginning, where you may not have much exposure to these tools that I'm showing you today, or any of the things like Shiny. And then by the end of it, you're going to be able to build these web applications. You're actually going to be able to not only build them, but deploy them in your company. So the 4-course art track is what I'm talking about. And there's 4 courses. There's the 101, which is your foundations. That's a 7-week program. It teaches you all of the basics. So you saw that we made a ggplot word cloud. You're going to be learning how to use ggplot. You saw we did a lot of data wrangling with the text, pivoting, doing all sorts of stuff. That's all going to be covered in this course. It's even going to get into a little bit of machine learning, actually a lot of machine learning, but the foundations, the fundamentals behind machine learning. Then you get into the more advanced course, which is the 201. This one takes about 10 weeks, and you learn a consulting framework that you can actually apply to your businesses. And this helps you sit down with them and map out these projects. It gives you all of the advanced tools, so you're able to apply advanced machine learning, like automated machine learning, apply Lime, and do all of the advanced tools to really make you super productive in your role as a data scientist. And then the last 2 courses are dedicated towards web applications. So once you learn data science, you need to learn how to automate and deploy Shiny web applications, which is really where your companies gain the value out of you. So when you build these web apps, like the one I just showed you for the Twitter hashtag analyzer, that is something that you can do for any business problem. If you learn the foundations of making web dashboards, if you learn how to use AWS, and if you learn how to make applications using Docker, Git, Bootstrap, and tying them to databases like MongoDB, then you will have the tools necessary to build your company almost any applications within reason that they need. And you will be you'll be in a really good position, because you'll be in high demand. You will be somebody that can basically go anywhere, and you'll get out of the routine of just doing what just getting the normal average raise every year, and you'll be able to accelerate your career because you'll be getting recognized for it, and your company will see you as the value that you are. Some more information about the courses. So if you are interested in these courses, I see that David has provided the link. These are an amazing set of courses. This is just the 101. You get tons of content, data manipulation, time series, text, categorical data, visualization. And that's just in the first 5 weeks. Then you get to week 6, 8 hours of video lessons on clustering, machine learning, regression, with two business challenges, and then also even reporting with R Markdown and Plotly. So you saw the Plotly visualization I created today. You're going to be using Plotly to create 2 project reports, and they'll be interactive reports. The 201, the key features are, like, in the beginning, you're going to be understanding the problem. You're going to be learning this business problem framework. But as you progress through that course, then you get to the machine learning and the automated H2O. You're going to be modeling churn, which is a $10 million problem for that company. And these big problems, you can use these high-tech tools to be able to solve them and provide really high accuracy. So it saves your company a lot of money. And you're going to do return on investment. You're actually going to calculate how much money you're going to save that company. And these are things that your company wants to be shown, because if there's not a dollar figure assigned to it, then you're not able to track your value to that company. All right, then you get into the 101 or the 102. You're going to build 2 predictive web applications. One is a predictive pricing app, and then another one is the sales dashboard with demand forecasting. So that's these 2 applications you're going to build in that course. And then in the 202, which is the 4th course in the system, you're going to build a full stack web application. So this is something that's going to manage multiple users. So you have to have a user database. It's going to connect to an API, and it's going to be hosted on Amazon AWS and using Shiny Server. So you're going to learn all sorts of technologies, the technologies that they never teach you in data science, which is Docker and Git. These are 2 critical software development tools. You're going to learn those. You're going to learn AWS, and you're going to learn Bootstrap and MongoDB. So that's the 4-course system, and I would love to have you in that program. In fact, I want to give you guys a 15% off coupon today to be able to help you get started. There's 2 different payment options. There's a 12-month plan, and then there's a lump sum plan. So when you buy these courses, you own them. You have lifetime access to them, and you can either buy it lump sum, or you can spread the payments out over 12 months. And after that 12th month, you own those courses. It's 4 courses. It'll take you about 6 months to complete them all, but I'll tell you what, that 6-month investment of your time is going to be well worth it. You're going to be getting basically able to name your job when you come out of this. You're going to be in very high demand. So with that said, I'm going to leave it up to David. Is there anything else you want to say?
Yeah, sorry, I've just been frantically typing. So many questions. A lot of the questions, I think it would have taken too much time to try to explain some of you guys' questions, mostly because a lot of the stuff that we talked about today, you have to have a little bit of previous knowledge with R. And that's where these courses come into play. So I know a few of you had questions about syntax and why things were done a certain way. That's where the 101 course would come in. Some of you had questions about deploying the app. That's where the 202 Expert Shiny course would come in. Some of you had questions about how can you make apps for other things. So really what it comes down to is where these learning labs are a chance for us to take a short dive into different topics and, you know, different topics that people are interested in, but they tend to be a little bit more intermediate to advanced. So if you want to learn the basics and you want to get up to speed where most of this stuff is understandable to you, well, definitely check out the courses. And it will help you greatly. And then one last thing, we fail to mention it often, but there is a Slack channel where you have access to, I think we're over 1,000 data science students now.
Yep.
Everybody's in there, Matt's in there, I'm in there. So definitely check out the link.
Yeah, the key for me is kind of figuring out where you are in your progression. And if you're in the beginning, the 4-course system is really the way to go. But if you're kind of, say you already know the basics, then you've got courses like the 201 and the 202, which are the advanced courses. So those are for the people who maybe already know the tidyverse, but really wanting to get their arms around, advanced application building or advanced machine learning, and also getting training from a consultant who has worked with companies and that can show you how to work with those companies in order to be able to solve their problems. That's what the 200 series courses are for. And then on top of that, you've got the learning labs, which is great because that's something too that gives you a different perspective, because it's more like specific kind of small scale projects, like David said, intermediate to advanced, and that's where that fits. We're talking about topics that we don't really cover in the courses, and we're filling in gaps, and we're also keeping you updated with showing you how to use the most advanced tools, which, as we know in data science, the tools are changing constantly. So that's kind of where the learning labs fits in. I honestly, this is the system, and my students can probably tell you more than me about how good it is. I just know from the results that I'm seeing, and I know that also from creating it. I wish I would have had something like this back when I was doing it, honestly.
Yeah. One thing. So just since we are talking about the courses, and then we'll jump to a couple of questions, but not to really. I don't want to throw any other companies under the bus or anything, or learning platforms, because there's a lot of good learning out there. But I think what's really different about Matt's program is, number one, you're taken through projects. So it's like real world projects. You learn everything. And so you can go in with no experience. In the 101 course, you learn how to set up R on your machine, how to set up the project, folder structure, all of that, like nitty gritty stuff. And then you learn about how to load libraries in, how to import data, clean data, visualize data. So it really takes you through, and all courses are project-based and takes you from end to end. But yeah, I think a lot of other learning platforms, they teach you sort of chunks of what you need to know, and then you have to sort of figure out where does this fit in the workflow. But one thing that we don't talk about a lot is Matt has what's called the business science framework, which is an end-to-end framework of how do you work through a data problem from the beginning to the end of it. And this framework is used as a template or a structure for all of the courses. So yeah, you learn quite a bit. You learn the skills, you learn some of the nuances of things about the tool sets. And then you also have Matt coding right there with you as you learn. So it's not just a screen where you're reading and everything. He's coding. You pull up your own environment next to the screen and you code, pause along with it, and it's just a great way to learn. So
yeah, and it's the other thing too, David. You mentioned the community. So if you ever have any questions, you can reach out to me there. And you can reach out to, we're over 1,000 students. We're actually over 1,100 now. And, there's something about that. You're able to network with other people. They're all going through the same thing that you're going through. And just being in a community where you have people around you that all kind of understand and are all, pushing for the same goal, which is to help them succeed and you succeed. There's something about that I think really kind of it gives you that ability to succeed. So you're not going to run into an error and then never hear a response from anybody. You're able to ask that question as soon as you run into that error, and sometimes even in real time get the solution. That way you're able to keep continuing your learning journey. So it's really a good system. As long as you had the motivation to succeed, the program is going to help you. So, and it'll get you there. All right, David, let's hit some questions. I think cool. I'm beating this one pretty good.
All right, cool. So there's been a ton of questions. I think I know Sean, I can't remember his last name, but Sean asked much earlier, was this analysis done with 1 gram?
Yeah, technically it's a 1 gram. So for those that have never done text analysis before, there's this thing called 1 gram or what's called an n gram, n the letter n, which means that in stats that's normally n can change. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can do a 2 gram, which is called a bigram, 3 gram, which is trigram. And that's basically means you're looking at sequences of words that happen sequentially. So say, you're analyzing Papa John's and they have a tweet about pizza. You might see, 2 words that happen frequently are pizza dough or pizza sauce. You're looking at these sequences of terms and how frequently those happen together. So we use just a 1 gram, and that's because we're just looking at the polarity of, in most of these dictionaries for sentiment, you normally only use a 1 gram because they don't have the sentiment for like pizza sauce. They just have it for pizza and sauce. So in order to be able to join that data, you just need a 1 gram or a single word. So. Yep.
Okay, sure. Let's see, what else do we have? I know there were some questions about internationalization or just using different languages. I've only done a couple of projects with sentiment analysis, and they were all in English.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know more about that, Matt.
So in terms of the dictionaries, the only one that I have seen are mostly English. But in terms of the Twitter data, you can get that in up to 30 different languages. So if you have a dictionary that you can find for sentiment, like say in Chinese, you can search Twitter and get the Chinese, just Chinese Twitter data. And then you can utilize your corpus, which has, if you get a dictionary with the sentiment analysis for that Chinese data, then you could do the same exact analysis in Chinese.
Okay, cool. Let's see. This is this question, we're going back to the courses here, but it's come up about 6 times now. Is access to the video lectures and learning materials available for a lifetime, or is there a time limit?
Yes. Yeah. So once you complete your final payment of the courses, so whether you buy the first, buy them lump sum or do the 12-month plan, you own the courses, meaning you have lifetime access to them. If I ever make any changes to them, you get those updates. It's basically unlimited access because they're yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we say 6 months. So you can do it faster if you spend tons of hours a day, or it can take longer based on however much time and motivation you have to get it done. But it is at your own pace.
Yep.
Okay. Do you need knowledge of R before you start the first course, the first 101 course?
No, that's actually why I created the 101 course, was because why I initially made the 201 course, and it was very advanced. But I could tell by the students that were taking that course that they needed some more foundational. So I made the 101 course and designed it so that way you need no prior experience, and it starts you at just the basics of how do you set up R, how do you get started, what libraries should you load, how do you load the library, all of that stuff that, like, if you've never used R before, or RStudio, the IDE, which is how you typically develop in R. It gives you all that. It gives you that foundational stuff just right from the first few lectures. And then it just gradually kind of takes you up through the weeks. And by the 6th week, you're doing machine learning, and it's pretty impressive what you accomplish. So
yeah. Okay, and then let's just do one more here. Actually, let's do 2 more, because there's this question of couple people asked, but it was about, I think it's the lexicon. We're doing one with positive and negative. I think that's the Bing one.
Yep.
But there's others that give more emotions or more sentiment. Can you talk a little bit about that, Matt?
Yeah. Some of the other ones, like the affin, actually gives you a value. So it assigns like a polarity, like a magnitude and a direction. So think of it like a, you know, one word might be -3, so that's pretty negative. And then one word might be -1, so it's just slightly negative. So when you have that dynamic, what that does is it allows for much higher kind of volatility in your tweets. So if somebody has the word hate, for example, like obviously we all know that that one's probably like a -4 or a -5. I mean, that one's really bad, in terms of a negative sentiment. Love is the opposite, and that might be like a +5. So when you have somebody saying, I hate this, that'll be like a -30 tweet, versus, something like Bing, which would just be like a -3 tweet. So you're changing the amount that how volatile those tweets are.
Yeah. And this type of analysis can get pretty deep too, because if you're doing more than one n-gram, then the sentiment begins to change because you're sort of stringing words together, and it's trying to understand the sentiment for multiple words instead of just one word. So yeah, it can be a fun thing to do to play around with this text analysis. Okay, and then lastly, Ali asks, hey, can Shiny deploy trained machine learning models? This is a fun one.
Oh yeah, yes. So Shiny runs off of an R server. So anything you can run in R, which is like a machine learning model, you can run in Shiny, which is a really cool concept. That means that you can do real-time machine learning models that the user, like you don't have to connect it to a database. You can take that user information real time, run a machine learning model on it, and spit the results right back out, without having to have a database that's already been pre-learned and everything. So it really makes it's a big differentiator from something like Tableau or Power BI, which doesn't have that capability. So you're able to do any sort of like this machine learning. Well, we didn't do machine learning in this, but all of those tweets are being analyzed real time. They're being mined for sentiment, and a sentiment. That's why you're able to put in whatever you want, whether it's NFL or COVID-19 or Coca-Cola. It updates automatically. Like Power BI can't do that.
Yeah.
So.
And if I'm not mistaken, Matt, doesn't the 202 Shiny course, that's with the sales machine learning model, I believe. Is that the bicycle sales model?
So the bicycle sales model, yes, for the 102 course. So when you do that dashboard, there's a predictive model that gets run. Actually, both of those apps predict real time, and because you don't know what your user is going to select for like the forecast. So you don't know if they're going to want a 12-month forecast. You don't know if they're going to want a product level forecast or add an aggregate and which products that they want in that forecast. So it has to create it real time, and it does that using XGBoost with running on an R server, and that's how the app works. It makes a forecast live real time. User has no clue, but no idea that it's running a machine learning model, but that's what it's doing.
Yeah. So Ali, essentially that Shiny developer course basically does what you're asking. And I think it's also important to note one thing Matt said there was the Shiny course you learn Shiny, which is kind of a skill set in its own, but it also has machine learning in there. It has deploying to a cloud service. And so if you're not familiar with machine learning and you're not very familiar with R, you probably don't want to just start with the shiny course, because you'll have a lot of questions and you get frustrated. So that's why these other courses are building blocks for you, so that you can kind of come up to speed. And by the time you get there, you have all the prerequisites. But the 101 course, you don't need to have any prerequisites. You just jump right in and learn straight
Yep.
from the ground up. But yeah, I think that's it for today, guys. We really appreciate everybody coming and joining us. It's always fun putting these on, and I think the text analysis is a nice change of pace from some of the stuff we've been doing in the past.
Yeah, and now we're going to be coming up with a new series too. So for the next Learning Labs, I'll kick off a new series. In the past, we've done ones on SQL. They were pretty well received. Marketing was a recent one that we did, and then we just did the Shiny API series. So got a lot of good stuff, and we'll continue to have some good stuff going forward. So see you next time.
Yep. See you next time. It'll be about 2 weeks. Look out for the next email. I know some people were asking. So.
Yep. All right.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
All right. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.